Hey guys, Ryan Gill here with Hunt Primitive, where we entertain, educate, and inspire. And on this channel, we do a lot of primitive build and or hunting videos, just like this one. So if you're new here, do please consider subscribing. So not only are we going to take you on a bison hunt in this video, but this video is really about highlighting the new book, The Secrets and Science of Primitive Archery. The reason that this bison hunt even took place was because of this book, and this new book is absolutely loaded with information that has never been tested and data logged before. Now, when I say bison hunt, you're going to hear me refer to this bison hunt multiple times throughout this video, most likely. I would also like to say that I don't necessarily look at this as much as a hunt as much as it is data collection. If you know anything about me, we really pride ourselves on hunting really the hard way with stick bows and stone points, and almost every single one of those hunts is done in a free range sort of situation. Whether it's spot and stock whitetail deer, spot and stock wild hogs, or even hunting alligators on public lakes. But the logistics of doing a bison hunt, it just simply works out so much better if it is in a high fence ranching situation, since free range bison are a little bit more rare these days. So we'll be hunting on a 1,500 acre ranch on this hunt, and although it is certainly not an easy hunt by any stretch of the imagination, it's a guaranteed opportunity. It's certainly not guaranteed kill, especially when you're shooting real contextual primitive hunting implements like we are today. So hopefully we've been able to make that exceptionally clear, and it doesn't really matter what my opinion is on high fence hunting or what your opinion is on it. It's just is what it is. It's data collection. Some of this hunt may not be palatable for all viewers. This video is really just about the equipment. What does it take with a contextual wooden bow, a natural materials bowstring, natural cane arrows, and stone tips? What does it take to be able to efficiently and effectively take down a very large mammal like a bison? So I hope that you'll be able to take all the information, not only out of this video, but also out of this book, and apply it to your own builds. I've seen people every single year fail to even penetrate and kill white-tailed deer with primitive hunting implements, let alone something the size of an elk, moose, or a bison. And the goal of this entire project is to give you actual numbers and data points so you can model your own sets after that. So this way, when you take them out hunting this year, whether it's for deer or something much larger, you have all the experience to back the data to apply to your own sets so you can find success without going through some of those early failure points that so many of us do. Actually a good shot. It's actually a pretty good shot, because you like to hit them a little bit higher, because you don't want to go to their spine, obviously. Looked like good penetration. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, it was good.
Like 15 inches or so.
so.
It just happened like really fast.
Jeez, no kidding.
So, should be good. Best thing we can do now, not push them. Just give it time, like half an hour at least. Just let them do their thing. Man, that worked out. Looked like 16 yards. I'm gonna hand it to you. Yeah, counted it off. Looks like 16. So yeah, look where we just happened to be in the right spot. We thought they were gonna come. Up on this side of the swamp, and they didn't end up coming down the road, but it just kind of worked out. And so
We got a shot right through here as they passed by, so, and didn't even hardly run spooked. I mean, you know, they're used to getting hit with stuff all the time, so as long as we don't push them, I'd say half an hour, we'd just find them over there. It's like 16 yards, so quarter and away, and hit it like a smidge high, which I kind of like because it just fills them up. And it's realistically, it's right where Lip shot his bison, which just killed that thing 20 minutes stone dead. But a lot of people don't, you know, look at Florida and think bison, you know, and it's like, of course, you know, this is on a ranch. It's 1,500 acres or so. So, I mean, it's a pretty good piece to get around. You can lose them. I mean, you can see how thick it is. We hunted for a couple hours this morning before even finding them. And then they're pretty spooky. Everybody thinks that you're just a dumb cow and walk up to them. It's just like a ranch cow. They see you, they take off. They're not a barnyard kill, not a milk cow. And just always trying to put yourself in the right place. And you can kind of push them a little bit, and that's what we did. Is, you know, Joe and Jason and Mike got in there and they kind of just pushed them our direction a little bit, and thought they were going to come down here, but went that way. It didn't matter. Pivoted and got it done. But people don't think bison, you know, in Florida, but they did live here. You know, they weren't in the mass numbers, but you have like these early, especially in the Pleistocene, you know, they were definitely here. The Bison anticus, the really big ones, and then the more modern ones we have they came and went in smaller herds like this. So it wasn't like the massive stuff on the plains where this place is just covered with them, but you'd have these small herds that ebbed and flowed through Florida. So the peoples living here wouldn't just have a bison all the time. They'd be like hunting around for other stuff, and like, what are these giant things? Yeah. They're like, oh, I heard stories about this from Granddad. So they would come in and, you know, have the opportunity to shoot them. And, you know, they wouldn't be geared up to shoot bison per se either, unless they knew they were in the area. So they would just take their normal deer hunting stuff. And that's kind of what we're showing is, you know, take your normal deer hunting stuff, small points, you know, and that's what you can kill. Sinew, bowstring, yep. Yeah, the whole bow is contextual except for the paint and the glue that holds the snakeskin on, and that doesn't add any performance or longevity to the bow at all whatsoever. In fact, it probably robs like a foot per second more than anything. But sinew, bowstring, and cane arrows with the really small stone points.
I can't wait to find that point.
So it kind of puts it in perspective with my finger, and it always looks bigger, like in a picture, because these are tapered down so steep. But I mean, really slick transition. So there's nothing to hang up. So I mean, it probably went in there about that far, I would say, give or take, which is
at least
just about through a dang bison anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really all we needed to see. It sounded almost like a hit rib. It was a hard hit.
Boom.
It was a hard hit. So.
Well, if it hit rib, it slid right by it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Broke through it. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting to think about hunting bison, and got cabbage palms and gallberry and cypress and all that kind of stuff around. But, you know, and I know people too would be like, oh, well, this isn't, you know, a real hunt or whatever. And I think the most important thing to remember is that what we're doing now is not really a hunt per se. This is more data collection. It's an experience with friends as well. Certainly not super easy. And then, of course, got a lot of help around. We're going to bust this thing up with stone tools, which is going to be great, because who gets to do that in their lifetime? We might as well do that. But, you know, when you're talking about comparative to when I went to Idaho, hunting elk on public land and you shoot one, I mean, of course, that's a much more monumental kind of experience, you know. But it's not to say that this is super easy either, or, you know, or it's a
guarantee.
Yeah, exactly. Guaranteed opportunity.
That's right.
But no guarantee that you're going to have the equipment. And that's what it's about, it's the equipment.
Right.
It's about, you know.
Through the paces, man.
Yeah, it's not about the shot or the hunt in this situation. Right. It's what is this capable of doing. If it's going to take down the biggest thing in North America, now yeah, and that's really the most important part. You have to remember that we do this so people know what to expect when they go out and hunt, because they'll be able to have the book and look at all the data that's through this and say, before I go on that once-in-a-lifetime moose hunt or that once-in-a-lifetime elk hunt, and I want to bring my stick bow and stone points and sinew bowstring, but I'm not confident that it's going to get the job done. If you compare the data of what your set's doing compared to what this is doing, that's what it's all about. So if you can reproduce this, you know if it killed a bison, it's going to kill an elk without a problem.
Right, bison. arrows from this dude.
So heading into this hunt, this is about a year after my friend Lip, Philip Liebel, we call him Lip, I call him Lip, you should probably call him Lip too. He went and killed a cow bison with his bow and arrow set, and I was there to film it, and he was able to bring it down with a single arrow to the lungs. I'd say that's all probably 700 or 800 pound cow bison. A very respectable kill with a single arrow, and that's not always the case in the way that it happens, but that's what I was kind of shooting for going into this. Now, even a year before that is when I had the bison hunt with the atlatl that hopefully you guys have seen before, and if you have not, look it up. It's Hunting the Ancient Bison, and that's where I speared about a 1,300 pound bull bison with an atlatl and a little bit larger projectiles on a little bit larger atlatl spear than these arrows, of course, so we're able to get some pretty good penetration and laceration. And within the first shot, the bison was dead on its feet, but we didn't know how long it was going to stand there, and as it was becoming weaker and didn't want to flee, we came up and I put another spear in its lungs, and within 5 minutes it was down. So all in all, this was 10 to 15 minutes from the initial shot, that bison was down and dead. So these very large animals can take a little bit longer to go down in many instances. Compared to, say, shooting whitetail deer or hogs, if you shoot one arrow through both lungs, they are typically down and dead within seconds. But something the size of a bison can certainly take more arrows and take longer to go down. So after watching my friend Philip's bison take one arrow high to the lungs and go down, 40 minutes later was completely dead, I too decided I really like that shot placement idea, so let's go ahead, shoot him a little higher in the lungs and see if we can't fill those lungs full of blood. So after getting into position and making a first good shot and getting sufficient penetration, we thought, you know what, let's just give it 30-40 minutes and we're probably going to walk right up on a dead bison. Despite having a good plan and a good shot, it just didn't work out that way, and we soon found ourselves following around a small little herd of bison that had one with an arrow sticking out of it, and we just had to put together a new plan without them seeing us and push them down a trail that they wanted to naturally walk down. So myself and Jim, who was filming, Jim DeSias, we got on the trail ahead of them where they couldn't see us. We waited there for a while, and once we were set up and in place, Jason Smith, Joe McConnell, two good buddies, they stepped out on the trail, kind of peered over so the bison could see them, and the bison were like, oh, there they are, and they continued down the trail, and then they walked right by me so I could put another shot in, which was perfectly behind the shoulder and through both lungs.
The one right there. That's the one. That's dead right there. Alright.
That looked great.
Alright, we started over. Holy cow, I feel better about that.
Great shot.
Thank you. That was a great shot there. That was surprisingly far too, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, we're down there and we get them moving. They're kind of slow to move, so we took a couple steps, and then once we saw them kind of trot a little bit, we kind of held fast so they wouldn't run, you know. Yeah. And next thing you know, you see an arrow, man, just slice through out of the woods, man. It's like right in the side of it. You saw it kind of like, you know, like this a little bit, and then they
looked like it went in pretty far.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Sunk it.
And more so, it looked like it was completely horizontal.
Yeah.
As opposed to any deflection. It like cleared any obstruction. Yeah.
Also, like crippled it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it smoked. That's probably a hard shot. I was just looking at it going, I mean, it was out there almost 20, I would say.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it was like, I started to step it off, and I think I was on to 17, and I looked down and I could still see them down there. And I was like, yep, we're just going to back off, and it was up a little bit. So it was close 20.
That's
19,
good.
20.
That's about where you were dialed in at.
Yeah,
so.
just as it came out, I was like, man, I better really tighten this in. So I was on my knees and just really picked the spot as it's slowly walking by.
You followed it.
Yep, right on the heart. Yeah. It, like the first shot when it came through, it was all kind of a rush thing. It was turning around, they were moving through quick. and I took that instinctual shot, which I often tell people don't ever do that. And of course I did it, and you know, the arrow wasn't. I'm curious to look at it and see what it hit.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have been a rush shot or anything. It could have been just a simple deflection.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that could have happened there.
I'm curious to see what it is, because that other arrow's up.
Yeah,
really stupid high. So.
Well, we were trying to pick out. It was very difficult to see because we were still probably 75 to 100 yards pushing them. So it was hard to see which one was the initial one you had shot. So we're looking for an arrow so we can kind of beat in on that guy, because we know that's the one you're going to be targeting on. And but that's when that second arrow come out, man. It boom, like right in, and you saw it. Like,
could you hear it? Or no?
We saw the movement of them, and we were just focused on trying not to push them fast.
Wind was at our back, so
Right.
they were catching our wind and moved
And
slowly.
they looked just right at us.
But we were just real.
I'll tell you what, it's not, because they see you from 100, 200 yards, and they were gone.
Well, think about the
we just set up.
Well, we're also we're incorporating what early man probably would have done anyway as well.
Yeah, pushing around.
By you know, anticipating those movements, and then knowing, you know, they know their terrain they live in, not unlike Mike knows this area, right? Yeah. So they'd be able to head stuff off and drive them away from high dense cover or obstacles.
They're going to walk down like a modern, cut-in road that we can drive down the same way that they would walk down their natural trails all the time.
Absolutely.
And if you're familiar hunting an area, especially like down at Vaston's, where you just watch what the cows do, which used to be what the bison do, there's these huge trails that are we just call them grandfather trails, and they're almost dug in, and things have been walking down that for eons, generations and generations. And we always look at that and like, this is the place that a guy needs to set up and hunt. And and oftentimes we do, but of course there we like to spot and stalk around, but we're constantly just following animal tracks the whole way.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of the same situation, where today it's a road, a 2-track road for driving a buggy down or something.
Yeah.
But then it would have just been, okay, well, we know there's a hard trail through this thick stuff, let's get on that and then try to see if we can funnel them down there.
It's behavioral hunting as well.
Yeah.
We know we anticipate their behavior based on sliding out and pushing them. So that was good.
Yeah. And I mean, I said that this wasn't really like, I didn't consider this a hunt per se compared to, all the free range spot and stock stuff or whatever, but it's funny how quick it turns into a hunt in one situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's good.
Yeah. A little more fulfilling. I mean, you like to get just that one perfect shot, and then it's like, cool, it's done, it's dead. Like Lips was great. Like he hit one shot, went in, did what it needed. 30 minutes later we did it. We look at this and we're like, might get it, but let's try to get another shot in it. So instead of just rushing them, chasing them around, we're like, let's put together another strategy, which is so important to have a team. That's why I can't thank you guys enough for coming, because it's like you need that team, not just for processing of the animal, but to actually move,
being able to flex
and you can't drive deer around. Well, you can in some instances,
but they would have blown way faster.
Yeah,
that's what we were talking about down there. Like if these were whitetail, they're gone.
Yeah.
Well, again,
like we've done
you're looking
some
at
deer
drives,
you're looking
at the species, and you're looking at the behavior and that anticipated behavior. Being able to set up on it like that, super important. But it's good that it's more data collection.
It is.
It really is.
It's about the shots, and now we have kind of a marginal shot to see what went wrong, because we had deflection on that arrow, and it's sticking in like this, which obviously not like I was in a tree stand. So what did I hit that deflected it down? I'm not exactly sure.
Or did you hit something and it stalled, and then as it was moving off, it hit something and kicked it up?
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows?
You're curious to see it.
Yeah, you'll still get to see from
now we can see if you make that pocket shot like you're supposed to. It's sinking in there pretty good. I'm thinking that's right through its heart. If it's not through its heart, it's this far from it. I mean, that was a smoker shot, and it was actually a further shot with more stress on me at the moment. It's like just clutched it together and delivered it. And when I saw that arrow go, and I was like, we're done, we got this.
I'm anxious to look at the bone of the rib and look at the edge.
I want to see what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on that first arrow,
because
potentially.
I think we smacked something. It might have been too high, and as it was running away, especially spinal columns, they don't run straight across the back. They dip into the shoulders. And what I'm almost wondering is, because it was quartering away so hard, it entered probably okay, but maybe it went too far forward that it actually hit like the bottom fins of the
the facets of the
vertebrae.
Vertebrae.
Yep. And that may have been what deflected, and you hit that. And that's very likely what happened. I'll be curious to open it up and see.
We'll follow that track and see what happened.
Yeah, we'll give it 30, 45 minutes just because, but it's probably right now piled up. It's quick, but we'll give it some time because it's such a big animal. Then we'll get back on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, thanks guys.
Yeah, man.
At that point, we gave it about another 40 minutes before taking up the tracking job, and by this time, now this bison has become fairly weak no longer wants to keep up with the herd and has now isolated itself. So after the first shot, I was very confident that we were going to walk up on a dead bison, and we did not. And then getting a second opportunity I thought was probably going to be extremely difficult, and we kind of got lucky. We found a great opportunity and we put it together. After the second shot, and everybody saw it, I think we all felt really good that this bison is 100% going to die, and all we need to do is just sit back and let it happen. Well, a little while later, we find ourselves, here's the bison still just standing there. Such a big animal with 2 arrows in the lungs, not ready to give it up yet. It then became a cooperative job, not only of herding the bison around for the initial shots, but now in this situation, the guys surrounded the bison, and as it wanted to move off somewhere, they would kind of step out, scare it back to keep it away from the super thick areas that we really wanted to keep it out of. And then when it got next to something that I could sneak up on to get another shot, that's what we did. We had another one that was an absolute perfect hit, and you could not have center punched that rib any closer to the center, and that rib was enough to completely deny penetration. Ton of information of that in the book. The haft and the point is really the fail spot of this primitive arrow system. And then there was other shots where I had another shot angle, trying to get another arrow in it, and it was a bad shot angle and it hit real back. And then I had another one where the arrow or the bow ended up hitting a stick that was in front of me while I shot, and the arrow deflected. Although it still hit a vital spot, it ran a little ways, and then we put one more in it right in the lungs, and then from there 20 minutes later it was down and dead. Now, typically we don't go into hunts in what we would call pin cushioning an animal. We don't have to shoot it multiple times. It happens occasionally. Something the size of a bison, this one single arrow would put it down and kill it eventually. All we are doing is speeding up the process by putting more arrows in it. The weaker it gets, the more shots we can come in and continue to shoot to put the animal down more efficiently. So while that is not super palatable to a lot of people, it is realistically the most efficient way to bring down the animal. And not only is it the most efficient way to bring down the animal, but it gave us a tremendous amount of data per the arrows and its penetration, because we know how fast the bow shoots the arrows. The arrows were all weighed, and then later the depth of penetration was measured and then logged to put into the book.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where this one goes, what it's all about. So let's say right about there. Point. Man, that thing was in there.
Oh yeah.
Not including the point, so I'll have to add that on later. 1 foot exactly, 12 inches.
Got it. Minus. I'm gonna put minus point.
Yep. And then this was the second shot.
You want me to move it?
So right to the hair. Whoop, the point came off right there. I felt it click, I think. So minus the point on this one. Oddly enough, less. 9 1/4.
Now also keep in mind when we're looking at the depth of the penetration that I'm reading off here, that it doesn't seem like the depth of penetration is very far. That obviously doesn't account for any sort of shifting in the arrows, that it could potentially have pulled out more, potentially gone in further, but typically doesn't work like that because the flesh is stopping it. But more importantly, although the depths don't seem terribly great, remember that this is a contextual bow shooting a primitive contextual bowstring, a sinew bowstring, which, as you'll see throughout a lot of data in the book, that modern bowstrings give a ton of performance compared to primitive alternatives. And then also trying to remember that every one of these arrows was sub 500 grains. And that was vital to a different test that we were performing at the same time, which is mass and FOC versus kinetic friction.
And then this was the gusher. Ready for it?
Ready.
Oh. Okay. Minus the point on this one is 14. And that was, okay, keep this on camera so I remember here. This was the first shot, right? I think, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the first shot was 12. I think that's
Yeah,
the second
it's-
shot.
Oh,
no,
that's the second. You have them in order, first, second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, so 480 grains, 490 in the 422. whatever that's worth. But it's all going to come down to what it hits, obviously, when it's in there.
Right.
So, all right, we're good to go there. Got that information.
One of the most amazing facts in this is that these tapered cane arrows with the very small stone points on them, there was not a single one that weighed more than 498 grains. So every one of these arrows was sub 500 grains, and we got more than sufficient penetration to kill anything, even the bison clearly, but as far as deer, you'd shoot through deer with these with absolutely no problem whatsoever. So realistically, even shooting a heavier arrow wouldn't have yielded any faster of a death. We might have got a little bit better penetration and a little bit deeper wound channel, but 15 to 17 inches of penetration on a bison is already through the animal's thoracic cavity, and so it is now into both lungs sufficiently. So what's not really mentioned a lot in this video, but it is actually really well highlighted in the book, is the gear that we used and took on this hunt was specifically modeled after the best test results that we got through all the tests and data collection for the book. So I specifically made arrows that were lighter, that had tapers and very small projectile points, because we needed to put it into practical application that excessive mass in FOC isn't always the answer for optimal penetration. And you can read all about that stuff in the book. Very controversial subject, but we have a lot of data that supports it, and this hunt was the culmination, the closing the loop on that entire system to show that it's not all about mass and FOC, but it also is about kinetic friction. And this book is so much more than just a bison hunt. There's actually 48 chapters in this book, and the bison hunt is only one chapter. This covers everything from different bow woods, how moisture affects bow woods, hunting application in different regions, the animals that were targeted, the distance of shots, draw lengths of the average archer, how those draw lengths affect the speed of the arrow, how different arrow weights will penetrate comparatively, how tapered arrows go up against parallel shaft arrows, large points versus small points. You name it, it is in there. Primitive strings versus modern strings. There's so much information in this book that has really never been explored to these depths before. And we can quite literally give you all the answers to build your own sets. And if you follow these guidelines, you will have the most efficient and effective primitive archery sets that you could ever possibly want to shoot. So definitely check that book out at huntprimitive.com, and there will be a link down in the description for the secrets and science of primitive archery. Alright guys, another point of interest that we're going to share in another video. It'll be next week unless you're watching this later on, and if it's already published, I'll drop the link down in the description. But that is, we broke this entire bison down to boned off meat, disarticulated, all the way down to bare spinal column with nothing but Stone Age tools. So that's going to be the next video. That one's going to be a little bit more graphic as you see this animal completely be disarticulated. And we wanted to put it on a different video because there's a very good chance that that one's going to be age restricted. So make sure you check out that video when it's available, or down in the description or show notes for the link. And I hate to even really have to bring this up, but I think it's sometimes important that we do talk about this. That I know that there are people that are going to be like, wow, you really just tortured this animal and you did this for what? Or, yeah, I hope you ate the meat. And it's like, of course we ate the meat. We took bone, sinew, hide. We got as many resources off this thing as possible. We didn't just kill it for data collection. I'm a hunter first and foremost. And as far as, torturing this animal or, anything along those lines, and people would say, well, if you shot it with a big caliber rifle, you'd have put it down. I mean, I've seen bison shot with high caliber rifles that have to be shot several times. I've seen bison firsthand shot with modern bows and arrows and steel broadheads that need to be shot several times over the course of 1 to 2 hours to effectively put them down. And all of that being said, in general, Mother Nature is actually far more harsh on these animals than anything that we're doing through this hunting. Because realistically, in the wild, as these animals get older or sicker or get wounded while fighting, now what happens is, as soon as they show a little bit of weakness, you get stuff like either grizzly bears will run them down, or packs of wolves will chase them for hours, if not days, and they will run them to death, and be nipping at them and beating them up, and they'll run them to absolute exhaustion until they fall out, and then next thing you know, the wolves are literally pulling them apart and eating them while they're still alive over the course of hours, if not even days. So it's all just about perspective in the way that you look at it. This is the way that people lived. This is where we come from. This is reality. And all that I ever ask is that people open their mind to that perspective. And you can make your own decision if this is the type of hunt you want to go do, or no, I don't think I would ever want to do this and have to put multiple arrows in one and it not happen super fast, like we shoot a deer and it dies within seconds. That's a little more palatable to some people as opposed to the bison that maybe you have to shoot 3, 4, 5 times, put 3 arrows in the lungs and it still takes a couple hours for it to effectively put it down. That's up to you to make the decision on. I just wanted to give you the perspective of this is how it is for humans, and then this is how it is for nature in the real life. And as much as I do hate to have to bring that up, I think it is really important, especially in this day and age, to give that perspective to people. So that's it, guys. I thank you for following along, and remember to check out either the link down in the description or next week when we release the second part of this, which is where we completely break down and disarticulate this bison with nothing but Stone Age tools. What a phenomenal experience that is within itself, and it really highlights a lot of tool use, what's efficient and what's not, and I look forward to sharing that with you. So until then, we'll catch you on the next adventure.